some reason, I feel like I'm on crack. I think it's because I took yesterday to come back to life a little bit because my weekend was ridiculous. But for now, I am back. Hey y'all. And I have more Let's Not Meet stories that I'm super nervous to read. These all seem absolutely insane. Like, I was going through the subreddit and I was like, what happened? Like, what the fuck? So we're gonna hop right in because I have 4 stories because I couldn't choose. Like this first one, I was almost a victim of human trafficking when I was little. Hello, my name's Cal. This story takes place when I was around 10 or 11. I'm in my mid-20s now and can't help but cringe at myself every time I recount this story. Trigger warnings, mentions of human trafficking, child predators, and grooming. Nothing physically happened to me, thank God, but it was an extremely dangerous situation that I somehow walked away unscathed from. Before I begin, there's a few things I need to explain. Firstly, the city I grew up in is a small city, has a population of about 100,000 people. It was also named the most dangerous city in my country, 3 years in a row. So as you can imagine, it was a pretty sketchy place filled with a bunch of unsavory characters. Secondly, I was an extremely naive child. I was very sheltered growing up, and even though my parents did try to teach me stranger danger, it went in one ear and out the other. Thanks to my naivety, is that a fucking word? I didn't even know that was a word. I don't even know how to say it, but whatever. I put myself in very dangerous situations. It's a wonder how I'm still alive with how incredibly dumb I was. Anyway, my parents were extremely well off, so we lived in a 3-bedroom house. There was 4 of us, so I shared a room with my sibling in a cul-de-sac. It was a pretty tight-knit community where everyone knew everyone. I had to walk about 20 to 30 minutes every day to get to school, which was located in not the safest place, but it was safe enough. I had to walk along a pretty busy intersection on my way to school. This will come into play later on. One day after school, there was a strange person standing outside of the building. They weren't on school grounds, but on the sidewalk that bordered it. Let's call this person Herbert. Feels fitting, given the reason for them being there. Oh, Herbert, pervert. Ah, I got it. Herbert did not seem interested in talking with any of my classmates, but the minute I walked past, they called me over. You'd think I would be smart enough to ignore them and be on my way, right? Nope. I strutted my dumb ass over to them and initiated a conversation with them. Now, Herbert was clearly trying to conceal their identity from me. They had sunglasses that covered their eyes and they wore a hood. All I could see was the bottom half of their face. They introduced themselves and asked what my name was, and of course, being the massive idiot I was, I happily told them my name, what grade I was in, and the general area of where I lived. You know, things you tell creepy hooded figures standing outside of a middle school. Well, more days passed, and Herbert would sometimes be outside of the school, and they'd call me over so we could have a nice little chat. They were gaining my trust, and every time we talked, I'd reveal a little bit more about myself. Can't exactly remember what we talked about or what I told them, but knowing me, I was giving my entire life story. I do believe Herbert did try to invite me over to their house, but I said no. Not because I was starting to realize the entire situation was extremely dangerous, no. It was because I was scared to arrive home late. Come to think of it, I'm wondering where the hell the adults were this entire time. I don't remember them ever intervening, not once. I retract my statement about the school being safe enough. Anyway, the last day of school comes around. I had packed up my stuff and was on my way home. Now, while I was walking home, traffic was heading in the opposite direction of me. I was walking north and they were driving south. I remember I was in deep thought. I was thinking about what middle school would be like, where I would fit in, what cute boys there would be, that kind of thing. Suddenly, this blue truck slowly drives past me, a lot slower than the rest of traffic. Keep in mind this is around 3:30 p.m., so it's still pretty bright outside, but that didn't stop this dude from driving slowly past me. I briefly looked over at him and we locked eyes. He seemed to be in his mid-40s to early 50s. He was balding, was a bit on the fluffier side, and he was creepy as all hell. I felt alarm bell sound inside of my head and a little voice told me to hide my face. I quickly used my binder to hide my face from him and I just kept walking home. When I was certain he was far enough away, I dropped my arm and looked back at the truck. He was in the process of heading down a nearby alleyway, which I knew looped around back to the main road. I was having none of that, so I practically ran the rest of the way home and turned a 10-minute walk into 5 minutes. What made the situation even more terrifying was I remembered seeing the same truck parked a ways down the street from my school whenever I was chatting with Herbert. I also knew it was the same truck because it had a tennis ball on the antenna. I only saw the truck one last time. It was driving through my neighborhood, no doubt looking for me. Thankfully, I was in the back seat of my parents' car while we were on our way to visit my grandma. The back windows were tinted. They drove right past us, and I never saw them again. I moved in with my mom and stepdad a few months later after I last saw them for reasons completely unrelated to them. But to Herbert and their creepy accomplice, let's never meet. You think it was an accomplice? Or do you think it was him? Because you never really saw his face or their face. So what if the hooded man was the one in the truck? You know what I mean? Like, I feel like that's I feel like it was him. I don't know, I feel like it was him. And needless to say, I am very glad that nothing ever happened to you. I understand being a naive child. I feel like I'm the most paranoid person in the entire world, so like I probably wouldn't have done that. Like I am scared of everybody and have always been scared of everybody, but I get it. Like it's so easy to be so trusting when you're that young, especially if someone seems nice. Like, I don't know, it's just so easy. But I'm very glad nothing ever happened to you. This next fucking story says my ex-friend's dad is a murderer. Like, I can't make this shit up. But maybe they can, because you'll see. Hello, my name's Cal. Is this the same person? I'm in my mid-20s and this took place when I was in middle school, around 13 or 14. I'm pretty sure this is the same person. You have a crazy life. Also, a disclaimer, this is what I was saying. I'm not sure how real this story is. I heard it from another friend of mine who's not known to make up things, but when I went to search up articles, I couldn't find anything. Regardless, I have this, I don't know, feeling that she wasn't making it up, and I'll explain why. First, I need to provide some backstory. So, when I was 11 or 12, can't quite remember, I moved away from my dad's house to live with my mom and stepdad. I'll spare you the details, but it was to escape a less than desirable situation. Anyway, my mom and her boyfriend at the time, who we'll call Elias, the name of a bad guy from one of my favorite shows. My stepdad looks exactly like him. I think it's Elias. Elias? I don't know. Rented a house in a pretty sketchy neighborhood. It's all they could afford at the time. So as a result, I went to a pretty rundown school. The teachers and staff were nice enough. I've definitely been in more than one scary situation because of the school's location, but I digress. While at school, I made an assortment of friends, but there was one girl in particular who became my best friend. We'll call her Brittany. My new friend was pretty problematic. She would talk to older boys, put herself in less than ideal scenarios, that kind of thing. Turns out she was acting out due to her home life. Much like me, she was being raised by her stepdad and mother. Only difference is, well, there's a lot, but details. Her mom wasn't too keen on her daughter chatting with her biological father. Brittany's mom never really disclosed why, but whenever he did come over to talk with Brittany, it was done under supervision. I only met the guy once. Brittany had invited me over to her house for a sleepover, my first time there too, and her dad dropped by unexpectedly. Can't really remember much about what he said to Brittany or how her mom reacted. I assume it wasn't good, but there's one thing I can still remember to this day. The minute he walked in, there was a shift in the air. And I'm not talking about tension, but like the hair on the back of my neck stood up. Like I was prey, and there was a wolf nearby. Needless to say, I kept my interactions with Mr. Creepy short and simple, and I kept my distance from him. That was the only time I ever met the guy, and I'm very thankful for it. Fast forward a couple of years, I graduated from that middle school and started high school. Kept in touch with one of my friends, who we'll call Rain, but I lost contact with Brittany. You know what's so weird about your name choices? My best friend's name is Brittany, and she has a cat named Rain. Spelled the same way you spelled rain. I thought it was weird, I don't know. I lost contact with Brittany, can't remember exactly why. I guess we sort of just stopped talking as much and drifted apart. Rain and I had met up at a local mall and were at the food court, reminiscing about our middle school days. That's when Rain perked up and asked me if I had heard about what happened with Brittany. I obviously said no, that me and her had lost contact. Rain grinned that familiar way. She was about to give some juicy gossip. I thought she was going to tell me Brittany got pregnant or something, but boy oh boy, that could not be further from the truth. Apparently, while we were still attending that school, Brittany's biological father got a job as the coach for the junior girls volleyball team. I was on the senior girls team, so I never had a run-in with him, thank goodness. Well, while he was teaching young girls how to play volleyball, he was also buying street workers and taking them to motels to, well, you know. Unfortunately, something went wrong with one of these meetups, and this sick bastard took the life of a young woman for reasons unknown. I don't know the details, and even if I did, it would feel wrong to share them. All I know is that he killed a street worker and left her in the motel room and got away with it for 2 whole years. The only reason the police were able to find him was because of his truck. Apparently, it was a unique make and model, and someone was able to identify the same truck at the scene of the crime. By what I hear, he was promptly arrested and sent to jail. Again, I haven't been able to find anything on the internet. I've tried every variation of words I could think of to find something regarding the case. My ice machine is on, so you're gonna hear it for a second. But there's nothing. I can't say for sure if all of this is true, but with the way I felt when I met this guy, I have a feeling that it is, which makes me unbelievably terrified. I could have quite possibly met a murderer, so to Brittany's creepy father, let's not meet again. It seems too, specific to not be true. What high school or middle schooler would make that up? You know what I mean? Where else would you hear that other than from, other people around you? I don't know. It seems too specific to be wrong. I don't know, though, but it's scary regardless. I'm glad that you only met them once. You have a crazy life. I'm gonna go turn off my ice maker. And keeping up with the same theme, we have, statistically, everyone meets one serial killer in their lifetime. I know who mine was. Trigger warnings for domestic abuse, mention of SA, and violence against minors. If there's any details about the SA or any details about the abuse, I will not go into it, but there will be mentions of it. So, I met a serial killer when I was around 5 or 6 years old. The details of the meeting I got from my mother, as I barely remember the encounter, but I do remember her reaction to seeing him on America's Most Wanted. It was 1997, summer. It was my older stepbrother's birthday, and he wanted to rent some video games from the local mom-and-pop movie rental store. We didn't have a Blockbuster, this was the closest we had. We often frequented this store, so we knew the owners pretty well. After I, age 5, and my stepbrothers, 15 and 16, picked out what we wanted, my brothers stepped outside while my mom and I checked out. Then, a large man walked into the store. My mom described him as grizzled, overweight, and downright creepy looking. I had been moving about, trying to see over the counter and talking with the clerk, but when that man came in, I got scared and hid behind my mom, which was highly unusual for me. The man stopped, stared me and my mom down, then crouched down so he was eye level with me and said, "Scared of me, little girl?" Got up and walked to the back where adult videos were kept. My mom panicked, dragged me out of the store, and got me and my siblings in the car to drive home. She didn't tell my brothers until we were on the highway what happened because she knew they would pick a fight. Fast forward to 2001. My family and I were traveling from West Virginia to Louisiana to visit my family. My mom was always a fan of true crime and loved watching America's Most Wanted. This particular night, the story covered serial killer Tommy Lynn Sells. I'll never forget my mom's reaction. She was screaming, "That's him, oh my God, that's him," and actually called into the show about our encounter. Turns out he had just been released from a Charleston prison for aggravated R in 1997. Tommy Lynn Sells is also known as the Coast to Coast Killer. He's suspected of having around 20 plus murders under his belt, and he started killing at age 15. He was finally apprehended in 1999 after he attempted the murder of Crystal Searles and her friend Kaylin Harris, who were both teenagers who he had SA and stabbed 16 times, slashing Crystal Searles' throat and killing Kayleen. I think it's pronounced Kayleen. Sorry if I'm mispronouncing that. I feel so bad because I know these are real people. He was put to death April 3rd, 2014. Holy shit. I hate true crime. I fucking hate true crime. And I didn't read that whole thing before I read it just now. Obviously, like, this is like my first reaction to it. And I hate, like, I just hate it. It freaks me the fuck out. Like, I understand. I read you guys' stories all the time. And they're clearly about real people because you're telling me your stories. I know it's about real people, but like hearing that, it's like I'm talking about real people who have like literally been killed. Like, it's just, it feels so wrong for some reason. But we're gonna move on because I could talk about that for like 7 years. This last story says, "To my attempted kidnapper, let's not meet again." Like I told you guys, all of these are crazy. Before I start, I'm sorry if the story is too long or hard to understand. I have trouble explaining myself and putting thoughts into words in a way that makes sense to other people. You're fine. Also, I've never used Reddit like this, so I'm sorry if I'm not using it correctly. You did it perfectly, I promise. When I was 16, I'm 20 now, me and my oldest sister, 18 at the time, and my older brother before transition, 17 at the time, and my younger sister, 14, were wide awake at 4 a.m. and decided to go for a walk around the neighborhood. We thought going in a group would make it safer. Leaving our apartment, we planned on walking around the block for a quick walk. I don't remember the details because I wasn't in a great place, so was never fully there mentally, so I apologize. If you hear like rustling, Weems is playing in the shower. I can't control my cats. I cannot control what they do. I am sorry. I turned off the ice maker because I know it was loud. Can't control my cats. I can't make them stop. Not even walking a block, we made it to a road that looked like two U's that were attached together at the curve of the U. Walking to the middle of the curve, we were chatting about who knows what until we all noticed a red truck slowly driving up to the curve from the same way we came from. I ignored it and kept talking until my oldest sister screamed, "Run." Without hesitation, we all turned around and ran back to our apartment. I turned around for a second to look if the truck was chasing us and saw the red truck turn around and chase us back to our apartment. Sorry to cut it here, but I wanted to explain a bit about where we lived. We live in the worst part of our city, so this wasn't the first time I was chased by vehicles. Actually, this was my 5th and last time, and the apartment can be opened with a key or a number keypad beside the door, which is nice until you realize the code to the door is right above the keypad, which will be important later. For example, you press pound and press 4 numbers that was next to your apartment number above the keypad. Also, there were 3 floors and each floor had 4 apartments, so it wasn't a big place. And when you reach each floor, you have to open a heavy wooden door to get to the apartments on that floor. Back to the story. Running down the road and through the small back parking lot, I made it to the door. Putting the code in so fast, I bet I beat a world record. I swung the door open. I looked through the fully glass door to see where my siblings were and realized I was the fastest and the man was catching up with my siblings, so I screamed for them to hurry up. After all my siblings got inside of the building, I slammed the door shut and ran up the stairs behind all of my siblings. We ran up 3 flights of stairs and entered our apartment, locking the door behind us. As we try and catch our breath, we hear the main door buzzer going off, meaning someone had entered a correct code and opened the door. Me and my siblings freeze as we hear the main door open and the man walk up the stairs and enter each floor looking for us for about 5 minutes until he gave up and leaves the apartment. Me and my siblings vowed to never go out unless it's daytime after that and to never tell our parents out of fear of being lectured. The next day, I asked my sister what made her scream for us to run. She said she noticed the truck was coming to a stop behind us and got a bad feeling, so she screamed for us to run back home. So to the man in the red truck who chased me and my siblings to our apartment, let's not meet again. And then they also said, I've been watching your content for a long time now and finally got the motivation to start typing up my stories that you will hopefully want to share to warn others, women and children, to learn from my mistakes and be overly aware when you go out because you can never be too cautious when your life might be on the line. Let me know if you want to hear more stories that are more unexplained paranormal stories that I've experienced in that same apartment and some of my dad's paranormal stories. Hope you enjoyed this terrifying real story. I would love to hear all your stories, and especially paranormal stories. I am so down. I'm so fucking down. I hope nothing like this ever happened to you again. I know you said you got chased like 5 times. I hope it, and you said that was the last, so I'm really hoping it really was the last. That is all I have for now. I hope you guys enjoyed. If you have any other stories you want to share with me or the community, I will have my subreddit linked down below. How many times have I said in these videos, I'm gonna start saying that at the beginning, and then I don't? I have a routine. I need to get out of the routine. I need to say that at the beginning of these videos. I need to remember that. But I am gonna go. I love you guys. I will see you in the next one. Bye!